welcome back to So Shameless. Listen, first of all, I'm not the host this week. I just want to let y'all know, Dodge is the host. Don't give me Cold World. Don't do that. I'm so disappointed.
Oh, that was my man that said that?
I'm so disappointed.
Hold on, y'all don't like Cold World? What's going on? What's going
because
on?
Because of how do you come back from that?
Oh, from him. Y'all ain't changed your position on that yet? It ain't something.
I feel like that's anybody who's changed their position is just as pussy as he is.
Nah, I get it though.
How?
Because he know where it could go. He know that it's gonna get. No. I don't mean that like in some violent shit. He just know that the pettiest nigga is gonna win. Drake is built for this because he don't give a fuck. So he's gonna go. Him and 50 Cent are gonna go as low as they need to go, and they enjoy the shit. J. Cole is a little bit too mature for this, so he don't want to say the shots that'll really work. But I think he's capable of it, but he don't want to.
Olay, please speak.
He don't want to.
I think J. Cole's mistake is participating in the first place.
There it is.
I think it would have been fine. No reasonable person expected J. Cole to respond. Everybody thought J. Cole would have the like, I'm not in that camaraderie. I like us together and not take. And it didn't seem like he needed to because it did seem obviously for Drake. You just happened to be there, so you done, And so by participating, like I think everybody would have respected. If he didn't participate, he had said the same thing. Everybody would have been like, "Yep, that makes sense. Very J. Cole, blah blah blah." But because he did go and do the diss, you do a lukewarm diss, and then it seems like everybody received your shit trash. You sat down, you feel away, and now it's like I'm copping please. That being said, I'm okay with it.
Because you gotta know when to bow out.
Because ultimately, I think it's okay to not give a fuck about something because the rest of the internet is hyping you on it. Like, I feel like it's very clear that he felt a peer pressure. Like, everybody's like, you need to respond. His audience is pushing him to do something that he did not feel motivated to do. And so I think it's okay to be like, you know what?
No.
I actually check stock.
No.
I'm successful. These niggas gonna buy my albums anyway. I don't need to let them cause me a headache and stress my anxiety out.
This generation, y'all are ruining what
Bahamian from the Bahamas.
Okay.
Bahamian is something else, am I right?
From the Bahamas, yeah, Bahamian.
Yeah, I heard a little bit of the accent coming out.
Y'all are ruining hip hop by allowing him giving him this way out. That was whack as fuck. For the fact that he felt to jump in and then went on stage, like he literally said, I got my chin out, give me your best shot. I'll take it on the chin.
Ew.
Do what you do. Ew.
No Diddy.
Ew. It's disgusting.
Nah.
Like, man up. Fight, man.
Yep.
You did this to yourself. And I agree with Olay. By the way, I'm telling y'all right now. In the morning, as I drive from the Bronx to Brooklyn every morning, I flip between Ebro in the AM and the Breakfast Club.
Love Ebro.
Ebro in the AM, it seems to be Ebro and them. It's more like us. It's just like a really family vibe. This,
just
that,
kicking
and the
the shit, yeah.
Whereas the Breakfast Club normally have great interviews, or at least interviews. So I stop in to see what information I can get.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? If it's some information that I want to take to, I'll stay to the Breakfast Club. If not, I'm going back to the family vibes. It's early in the morning. Just make breakfast for the girls. You know what I mean? I'm in a family mood. I'm starting my day.
Yeah.
This particular day,
Yo.
I hear Eric Adams' voice.
Motherfucker.
I must say I'm not a fan of Eric Adams.
For the people listening that don't know,
He is the mayor of New York City. He's a black mayor of New York City.
But wait, the mayor that I told y'all not to fucking vote for, and I told y'all I didn't like that motherfucker, and I told y'all all the reasons why y'all should have voted for Maya Wiley, but no, nobody listens to me. Nobody listens to me.
Voted for her in the primaries because of you. And actually, we went on a whole campaign to try to get her on, but unfortunately, it wound up.
Yeah.
Oh.
But it was like really late. It was like, I don't live in New York anymore, so I didn't have a vested interest until I realized that it was him.
Yeah. And
then I saw who she was, and I'm like, why are we even talking about him when you have this amazing person?
So many things
that's
happen.
right here. But on top of that, like, I have a internal beef with that man. But go ahead.
Okay, so we'll get to that.
Yeah, I'm not. Yes, I said
this is your show.
This is my show. Say it again. Whose show is it?
It has always been. It's been your show since you got here.
It's my show.
Since you told me that I'm not supposed to say oxtails.
Yes.
It's been your show.
My
Are you alright?
saying it with the plural. With the ass too.
It's the way we speak.
So
it's
no,
cultural.
it don't make no sense. It just don't make no sense.
It's Black American
It's
culture to say oxtails.
Yeah.
It's West Indian culture to take the S off. All right. Stop colliding the cultures.
It's
We're
crazy.
Then stop
both
eating
alive.
it.
I was about to say, don't we win out here?
Right,
Us.
Like, come on, son. Like,
Okay.
just show some respect to my culture.
So I am
Damn.
listening to the radio and I hear Eric Adams' voice and they're always implementing some bullshit. So I'm like, what the hell is he talking about? And Charlemagne directed Eric Adams to listen to somebody that was there to ask him some questions. I'd never heard of you before.
Yeah.
Before that, the questions started going. It wasn't questions. It was a grilling.
It was an interrogation.
It was a call to like, yo, I know you. We don't like you. We don't like your stuff. It was very respectful though. She was very respectful. And I was cool with it because I'm like, I personally have my issues with him and, you know, whatever.
It was a cross-examination.
It was a cross-examination. And it was something that I was not expecting because you could tell he was not ready.
Yeah.
He was not ready. No, a mayor
Yes.
being on a nationally syndicated show, being grilled, and he can't cut. I feel like did they set him up? Did he know
He said,
you
"Did they
were going
set
to
him
be?
up?"
Because I saw your
Yeah.
tweets. I saw your a lot of your videos you did afterwards. You couldn't believe that he would sit with you because you call yourself the number one
Eric Adams hater. Yeah, for sure.
Do you think that they set him up to be there with you?
Do I think he knew that I was gonna be there? No, I don't think so.
I think he walked in and was like, "Where the fuck is Jess?"
There
Who is
definitely was that recognition. So what happened was, Charlemagne and the Breakfast Club had Candace Owens on, and I criticized them for that. I put out a video talking about why people out here platform and Candace Owens should be ashamed of themselves. So Charlemagne called me up in the middle of dinner because I already had a Breakfast Club interview before. So he calls me, he's like, "What's up, Queen? Let me have it." and I'm like, "I'm gonna let you have it." Like another 45 minutes of me telling him, us going back and forth about why we disagree on that. So eventually Charlemagne is like, "You wanna come on the Breakfast Club next week?" I'm like, "Of course. Yeah, I want my second Breakfast Club appearance for sure." Tuesday comes, nothing is confirmed. So I text Charlemagne like, "Hey, you still trying to do this?" Like, he goes, "Yeah, we trying to have you in on Thursday with the mayor." I was like, "The mayor who?" Eric Adams? He was like, "Yeah, Eric Adams." So I said, "Yeah, there's absolutely no way in hell that anybody in his team allows that to happen. I don't see that happening." And then my mommy was like, "Absolutely no, do not do that." I called my mommy. My mommy was like, "Oh no, it's a fucking setup." my mommy was like, "They ain't trying to get you." She's like, "I don't trust Charlemagne." Like my mommy is convinced. So for like 24 hours, I have full anxiety. I found out Tuesday, interviews Thursday. I get there like 9:15, 9:30 in the morning. I didn't know I would be doing the interview. That's not what they said to me. They were like, I thought I was gonna be sitting in maybe half in. I wasn't expecting him to say yes to it. So I was like, ain't no way, it's not happening. But I thought I'd be in the room or they would be interviewing me too. They tell me outside of the room, I'm already there in the morning. They go, Charlemagne goes, "Okay, so you're gonna be asking the mayor the questions. You're gonna be doing the interview. Don't hold back. Ask the mayor what you want." That's what they tell me then.
I love him.
Yeah, and then he goes, Eric Adams is gonna be here 10:15. And I'm like, wow. And so we get in the room. There was, I believe, some recognition that he would not love talking to me or the nature of that. Because Charlemagne was like, "Yeah, listen, I have the cameras rolling. Have him pointed to the door." Like, yeah, the cameras were already rolling. Like, because when he walked in the room, see me, the interview starts.
Oh my God.
Charlemagne is such an instigator for that. I can't believe it.
I love it.
I mean, it's great.
Y'all know that's my
entertainment.
spirit animal. I fucking love it. Do it. Okay.
No, I respect it. I appreciate it.
You
Love an
have
ambush.
a history of studying Eric Adams, basically his tenure, the time that he's been there.
Yeah.
What has made you so passionate about this?
So let me be clear. I would cover anybody like that. Look, whoever the next mayor is, I will be just as informed about what they were doing. I criticized de Blasio. I criticized Cuomo heavily. That's pretty much how I got on Twitter, was criticizing what Cuomo was doing with bail reform, because at the time I had clients in Rikers and I was very worried at the top of the pandemic. So I would be criticizing, or I would be focusing, paying just as much attention. But the reason why Eric Adams gets so much ire from me is because he has some of the most anti-Black, regressive policies in criminal justice you ever did see. Like, one of the first things he did This was before he actually even took office. He said once he'd been elected, he comes out, the city council had went to move to make solitary confinement, to ban solitary confinement for obvious reasons, like what happened to Khalif Browder or Layleen Polanco, who died in solitary confinement on $500 bail at Rikers. So he comes out and goes, he supports solitary confinement, but he's like, let's not call it solitary confinement, it's restrictive housing. Like,
so basically just make a house.
Yes, just call it something different. He's like, oh, we'll call it punitive segregation or restrictive housing. That's how he's trying to combat. And he tells the city council was like, absolutely not. We can't have solitary confinement.
Call it a studio apartment. Right?
Yeah, this is just, he tells them that he's not listening to anybody who's not a cop. He tells them, I wore a vest, I was NYPD. If you're not NYPD, you can't tell me how to run this city. And if you don't like it, and that's what he said. He actually said, if you don't like it, well, I'm the mayor. That's what he said. So that's the first thing he did. Then one of the first things he does once he gets into office is there were these units that were disbanded in 2020 after George Floyd's killing and all of the protests. There were these units that were explicitly disbanded because they had been disproportionately killing black and brown people. He revives the units.
Yep.
Brought them back.
The black mayor brings them back and names them something different. Calls them neighborhood safety teams. Dispatches them
These
to all of...
was running up in the projects, kicking down doors. Remember I told you about that date I went on with a cop, and me and him had one conversation about the nuance between, he was talking about we need crime reform, and I said we need more education in New York City. And that was the last date we went on. And he was one of those niggas in that unit. And he's like, you don't know what I see. I said, you don't know what I see.
Right.
Like, how are we not on the same page if we want what's best for Brooklyn? We want what's best for New York City.
Right.
But you are already indoctrinated drinking the blue juice of the NYPD. So 100%. You sitting here telling me that you want to knock these 15, 14, 16-year-old young boys in the head and put them away and put them in Rikers when they need to learn how to read and they need resources and they need shit to do to keep them occupied so that they're not doing stupid shit. It was like a whole debate in my house, and I said I will never again. And then now I'm gonna marry a firefighter because that's what makes sense. That's what makes sense.
Continue. Tell us more about.
Yeah, so those units, then he revives them, he rebrands them as the neighborhood safety teams. He dispatches them to all of the black neighborhoods, and they have been by the federal monitor. So New York City has obviously a history of abuse against black and brown people. And so for that reason, when stop and frisk was found unconstitutional, they put in place a federal monitor. So there's a federal monitor that monitors what NYPD's practices are doing and what's happening in Rikers to make sure or to confirm that they're not actually in following the Constitution or protecting rights, and they submit reports to a judge. The federal monitors, who have analyzed more than 10 different of these neighborhood safety teams, have found that over 97% of their stops have been on black and brown New Yorkers. That very few, despite that he's telling us, he's trying to convince them that, oh, these stops and all this is happening because it's stopping crime. They're not yielding any results and not finding guns or crime or anything.
0.00 something 1 or 2%.
Exactly.
Actually yield in
anything. So you are over-policing explicitly dangerous police, like dangerous units. You've dispatched to over-police black and brown communities, so much so that the white federal monitors are like, this is unconstitutional as shit. I've never seen nothing like this. The monitor is saying this is worse than in the Bloomberg era. And then black people don't know about that. And so that's the real problem I have with him, is that he lies to black people. He intentionally gets in front of black people and he presents himself as something that is complete antithesis of what he's doing. But he says that to white people. He says it to the white liberals. That's why they're voting for him. So then what they do is it manufactures consent for us. They say, well, he has the strongest black support. Black people want this over policing. Black people want this, but black people don't know he's doing that. He gets in front of them traditionally in a space like the Breakfast Club and starts telling them something entirely different than what he's doing.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Are we disillusioned? Are we voting just black? Do black people need to wake up? Because when Eric Adams went in, I knew everybody was going to just see a black man.
Yeah.
And I'm like, bro, he's a cop that has a career cop. He's a career cop. He's always at the front of it. Like, this is what he does.
Yeah.
And even they don't fuck with him like that.
Yeah.
Like, so understand that this is a person that he's going to sell us.
Yeah.
This vision, and now he's still selling us this vision.
I don't think it's that. In the case of Eric Adams, a few things I think specifically happened. I don't think it's that black people voted for him just because he's black and didn't pay attention to his policies. It's because he specifically sold black people a lie. Because if you look at his ads he was running during the campaign, his ads specifically said, I became a cop because I was a victim of police brutality when I was 14 years old, and I came to fight racism from the inside. Those are the ads he was running to the black community. That's what he was getting up to his town halls, to the black neighborhoods, and telling them. So black people didn't vote for him because he was a cop. He played on the fact that black people know that they're abused by NYPD and by the police, and he let them believe, I'm somebody who's going to try to fight from you from the inside, as I've done my whole career. But in actuality,
never been true.
Never been true. He's actually explicitly told the Atlantic, it's an interview by his own words, he told the Atlantic, when Eric Adams was 14 years old, he was in a gang. He was in a gang running around doing crime.
In Brownsville.
Yep. And him and his brother get arrested by the police when he's 14 years old. The police beat the brakes off of them. Beat them so bad. He said there was blood in his urine for days. And he said what happened was, after a while, the white cops are beating the brakes off him. A black cop, when he decides, all right, this is finally enough of letting them get beat, tells them to stop, and so they stop. Eric Adams' brother decides, like a sensible human being, fuck the police, right? Like, I hate the police forever. Eric Adams said that he saw that black cop that was able to do that and said, that's what real power looks like.
Stockholm Syndrome.
He said, not even Stockholm Syndrome. This is somebody who was interested, and I'm not even critiquing where that interest comes from, right? I can understand being a black person growing up in a white country that is constantly, beating you down and makes you feel like you have very few avenues for success or for power. I can understand why, as a black man or a young black boy, you could want to seek out avenues for power. The real danger is when it's at the expense of your community, because what he says there is, he said, I wanted to become a police. I decided right then I was going to be a black cop because that's how I would get the juice. He said that, the juice. Be able to go to parties, be able to have real power. So that's the problem. I wouldn't have a problem. He could be this self-interested and care about power and all these different things by himself. The problem is he's in a position of power that gets black people killed. You know what I mean? Like, killed. And I think that's something too, like when people, they look at it like it's just like, oh, you don't like him or you disagree on policy, or no. Black people die pre-trial, and he says, I'm going to support the corrections officers. Black people get killed by NYPD, and he comes out and helps feed the lie about, oh, they were armed or they attacked. And then months later, when the footage comes out that that's not the truth or what happened, silence, dust, you don't hear it. Like, this is somebody who's actively uninterested by the worst case scenario of what could happen to black people. If you don't care when black people are killed, there's no scenario where you're looking out for us.
Now, you spoke on that during the interview. You're like, yo, you're worried about this officer, but you don't speak on the young man that was shot.
Yeah.
I can't remember what the
Win Rosario.
It was a
19-year-old that he was having a mental health crisis in Queens. So he called NYPD for help. NYPD comes to his kitchen. He's holding a scissors because he called for help. He has a scissors, a mental health crisis. They shoot him to death.
I thought that there was supposed to be some mental health unit that was supposed to be formed to go to mental health calls. That never happened.
Eric Adams doesn't support the mental health initiatives. When he became mayor, what he did was make it so that people could be involuntarily committed. That's his version of mental health assistance.
He also made it where that if you die in jail, they don't have to report it.
They don't have to report it.
What is that?
So Rikers is like my bread and butter of where I do a lot of my advocacy in New York City. And what a lot of people, Rikers is a place that's infamy works against it because people think everybody's heard of Rikers. So they think, okay, I've heard about it because it's this really terrible place for really terrible people. You'd be surprised how many people live in this city and don't realize that it's a pretrial detention center, that's where they're sending people who are just poor and can't pay for bail and they're awaiting trial. So people have been dying now in years. The Rikers crisis has been exacerbated. They've called it a human rights crisis. And so before Eric Adams became mayor, I think the most deaths the year was 16. Before that's been way more than that. I think over 31 people have died in Rikers since Eric Adams became mayor that we know of. And I say that we know of because when he got tired of people like me drawing attention to that and the public outrage and backlash, what he did was he just completely got rid of the policy and decided they would no longer inform the public of any in-custody death unless they said if the media finds out about it and asks about it, then they'll confirm it, but they will not announce it or tell anybody. So, and there are people, I've talked to mothers whose sons have died in Rikers, they don't even get a call. They don't even hear about it, don't know.
What?
Don't know.
For how long?
I've talked to 2 different mothers. Especially one of them, I held a Rikers rally where we got buses to bus people to Rikers for free for the rally. And a mother of one of the young men who had died at Rikers, his name was Stefan Kadu. His mother spoke there and she talked about the fact she got a call. She got a call because they happened to be asking about something different, like where to go send his clothes or something, is how she realizes her son is dead. So.
Get the fuck.
That's fucked up.
Yep.
I don't know if you guys have questions.
Quick question.
Very quickly before you do that.
Okay.
Is Eric Adams able to get away with this? Is there a way that the community can change his policies?
How can we change his policies? We have a lot. We have a lot of help, or we have a lot of advocates that are against what he's doing. Like, we have a lot of people in the New York City Council that fight tooth and nail against what he's doing, and a lot of different New York politicians like Latrice Walker, Tiffany Caban, Chi Osei. Like, there are a lot of them. Like Julia Salazar. There are a bunch of them. So there are a lot of people doing a lot. Like when he did the End Solitary Confinement Act, or not the End Solitary Confinement Act, when he tried to get solitary, they passed the law to combat that. They have protected. They've tried to hold the fort on bail reform. Recently, they tried to pass a bill called the Stop, I think, the Cops Veto Act. They were trying to create more transparency, that police would be required to report everything it is that they're doing. Eric Adams vetoed this. And so they vetoed his veto. So they do things. There are different ones we have in the council that are protecting and trying.
What about just the general public, though? Is there anything that we could do to force?
We can vote him out.
That's it. So he can do whatever he wants while he's in.
I think the thing about it is like, there's so much damage that you don't see, like beyond policy. Think about how many people in New York City who themselves have not been the victim of crime, but you let them tell it they're terrified. This is the scariest city alive, because that's what he's telling them. If people vote a leader and their leader is the one telling them the place is dangerous, all this and the next thing, that perception will then influence how they perceive people. Think about how many people are perceiving the migrants as a danger and a threat to them because the migrant crisis is being portrayed that way, or they're convinced they don't know a single migrant, but they're telling you they're overrun with migrants. So perception is like, yes, you can combat policy, but policy is impacted by belief and feeling, and if that is just spoken,
the propaganda of it
exactly all. The propaganda of it all.
Child.
So I have a comment and then a question.
Yes.
The comment might sound a little strange, but when I listened to the interview, I felt bad for Eric Adams. That was my comment, because you were so part of the reason why I felt bad, not because I'm an Eric Adams supporter, but because Breakfast Club, they do several interviews with different politicians, Democrats, Republicans, Independents. I've never seen them interview somebody, especially somebody that's holding office, and then have like an opposition or somebody there to like grill him.
Crazy.
And so I was like, yo, this is kind of unprecedented. If I was Eric Adams, I'd be tight. So like you said, I don't know if he agreed to it or if he knew about it, but I was like, I felt like he got ambushed. You know what I mean? So.
But can you be ambushed with your own things? Like when I think about it, it's funny to me, right? Like I do interviews every day. Like I do interviews all the time, and I do interviews in like hostile places too. Like I host Rising on the Hill, which is a right-wing show where the topics are right-wing, the show is right-wing, and the other host is right-wing, and they're all against me. I'm usually in a room full of people that are against me. Even in the Breakfast Club room, he's the mayor. He does not agree with me. Charlemagne and Envy are not inclined to naturally agree with me either. You know what I mean? It's not like we share the same views, but no one would ever feel like you're ambushed. You know what I mean? Like, or when I'm required, I don't know when I go into a room what they're going to ask me, what they're going to talk to me about. They're going to ask me about all the same things, and whether or not it seemed like they were out to get me has everything to do with my performance. So the only reason people don't feel that way is if you do well. Can I ambush the mayor? Can one woman who's been saying the same thing and everybody has been making these critiques? This is what he knows about. This is his administration. These are his policies. Should you be able to be ambushed with your own policies? Should you not? Because when you think about it, right? All he had to do was be able to articulate, to be able to defend it. My original, the first question I asked him, Eric Adams comes out, he gives his opening statement about how New York City is the safest big city, and the only reason people think it's not is because of the difference between fact and feeling and perception and how it's painted.
The way you went at that.
So I said, I agree. I agree that New York City is the safest big city and that there is a difference between fact and perception, but that your own rhetoric has contributed to that fear-mongering and why people don't feel safe. So how do you reconcile that? Exactly.
What is my rhetoric?
He could have just reconciled that.
Well, what did I say? What did I say? Nigga, right? What did you say? Like,
and he not only denied it, he kind of like gaslit her. And she was like, well, there's plenty of options there. But then she brought him up. He went on, it started like basically turning his back to her. He was like, all right, this is...
And that's that shit about him. That's my personal issue with him.
You're doing a little too much, man. Charlemagne, as I was saying. And then he brought up the rhetoric later on, and you pointed that out.
And that's why I said I felt bad, because if you think you're coming for an interview, but you end up in a heated debate, not to say that he shouldn't be prepared. You should always be prepared, right? Mm-hmm. But it is a different energy that you're coming with.
Yeah.
And I felt like other people haven't gotten that same treatment. Like I said, I don't remember any political affiliates that came and had somebody grilling them like that. So that's the only reason why I felt bad. So my question is, did anybody, so I know you posted.
But he's a cop. He had a 22 years career as a cop. A police officer's job is to be a witness. A police officer gets on the stand regularly and is cross-examined by public defenders like me every day.
But so you know when you're going to be on the stand, though. You know when you're going to be on the stand. It's not a surprise. But shit.
But that's a good point. But no, that's a beautiful point, because what does it say about your perception of black media and black audiences if you expect to come into a room full of black professionals as a mayor and not be able to and not expect to be questioned about your policies?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Because all I said, I didn't have to get on a soapbox and say why this is so wrong and what I think about you. I said, the Federal Monitor said this. How do you make sense of that?
Mm-hmm. Right.
This is what happened then. You did this. You did that. You can't defend your own thing. If somebody brought up to me, and if I was a political figure and somebody wanted to question me about my position on policing and my position on the criminal justice system, I'd explain the position. Mm-hmm. I could do it. Like I have a Spectrum New York One interview that happened after the Eric Adams interview, where she asked me all kind of questions that if I didn't answer them well, it would seem like she was against me. Mm-hmm. Like she set me up when she's like, oh, this is the crime that they have with shoplifting and blah, blah, blah. She didn't tell me that. Nobody told me that they were going to tell me that or question me about that. It has everything to do with, are you able to articulate and defend your positions? And the reality is, in the Eric Adams interview, he can't defend his positions to black people because it's wrong on its face. The only defense to it is to make sure black people don't know about it. And that's why you're screaming over me. There's nothing he could say to tell black people why stop and frisk, why you revived units that were like disbanded for killing us. There's nothing you can say to explain why you would disproportionately police black and brown people. There's nothing you can say to justify why you are hiding from the public the deaths of black people awaiting trial. Mm-hmm. That's all it really boils down to. It's not about being ambushed. It's about being unprepared to have people know what you're doing.
Jeez.
So the feedback, I'm just curious, the feedback that you got from this interview, like on your social media and stuff, was it all positive? Was everybody agreeing? Was any...
The New York Post tried to.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't know.
You need to follow her. First of all, the police.
I was like,
police was
actively harassing me.
They start trolling her. They start literally trolling her.
Yeah. Like the police Twitter account.
It's nuts.
Radicalized my boyfriend. He's like, my boyfriend was in. I was like, this is the police. Like NYPD's page.
Right. Did that scare you?
What were like some of the comments or things that were
from NYPD
or from any of them?
Well,
from everybody. You know, the way I see it, my mother has always been very generally concerned about the advocacy I do in America. She's always said, please, you in them people country, you know, anything could happen to you. Your family is not there. My mommy always feels this. From my perspective, I see what I do as a privilege. I think it is a privilege to be able to like pontificate on a hill as a black person, to be able to advocate for black people. The average person in the society doesn't get to express their views or get to fight against what they think is wrong or to be heard, let alone the average black person. So to me, I see it as, if I think about it as who's educated me, who's come before me, I've been educated by the people that I do think are revolutionary. I don't think of myself as a revolutionary, whether or not my positions are radical based on the status quo. I don't think I'm a revolutionary, but I know what happened to the revolutionaries who educated me. They're either dead, in jail, or not able to be received onto mainstream media. They don't get to make YouTube videos with fluorescent lighting. So when I think about that, it's hard for me to feel for myself. You know what I mean? Like, I don't feel like, oh, I'm getting threatened, this is happening to me, blah, blah, blah. I feel like you knew that when you decided to go out and do that. Now, what I do, I actually really, really appreciate NYPD harassing me openly. I love that, actually, because for me, I'm constantly trying to explain to people that we live in a police state and the danger. This is a police state. Like, and people really, it's hard for people to contextualize and conceptualize what that means in real life. Like, the danger and what it means if you cannot criticize the police, if the police have the ability to throw a governor out of a funeral. So when you see people it's not like I attended a protest and they could lie and pretend I turned it into a riot or I incited something. If I'm invited to go on a nationally syndicated radio station and interview the mayor and you don't like the mayor's performance, so now you're harassing an attorney and journalists, so however they decided to categorize me, and you're openly doing that, what does it say about the average person that's interacting with the police every day? What happens? What's the average experience of the everyday black person who isn't a lawyer, who you don't get to see on Front Street what the police are doing to them? What do we think is being done to those protesters, those organizers, or just the black kids that interact with the police in our neighborhoods? So to me, I was like, this is the best thing that could ever happen. I keep trying to tell y'all what NYPD are doing. You see it? You see it? I'm like, look at the tweets. Like,
yeah, that's exactly what you did.
One more question. So we have a lot of listeners all over that are not in New York City.
Yeah.
For those that might be like, what the fuck does this have to do with me? Seriously, what would you say to that? Do you think like any of this is pertinent to other cities or just general policies?
Absolutely. I mean, policing, America in and of itself is a place, like the overinvestment that you see in policing, or the institutional desire to police and to control black people is it's universal. It's a global issue, reality. But across the United States, that is the truth everywhere. If you think about it, like, look at it like this. In New York City, like, if this is what's happening here, the place that they consider a progressive utopia, they like to portray like, oh, it's so liberal, it's so diverse. And I went to college in Ohio, high school in West Virginia, and Florida. So I've lived, and my sister lived in Kentucky, and my other one lived in Texas, and another one in Nebraska. So I'm familiar with the places, all right? I know what's happening in this area, United States. So if this is what happens in New York City to, again, and someone in a professional capacity, what do you think is happening to black people in the other places? Like, think about the Ferguson protests, and every activist from it is dead under mysterious circumstances or in prison for some disproportionate thing. So of course it impacts us, because I actually wrote a piece about this for Essence recently, about the DC crime bill and our need to reckon with these anti-black politicians that we keep electing because #Black excellence. We have this issue going on. We have Muriel Bowser in DC, who's a black mayor who recently passed the DC crime bill, where she made it so in any area that the police decide is a high crime area, they can search and arrest any black person in a group of 2 or more, or any person. Obviously, I said black person because that's what it's going to be. But any person in a group of 2 or more in the neighborhoods they say are high crime areas. If you're wearing any kind of mask, any kind of covering, the police are allowed to approach anybody they want and question you. All these things. Black mayor, you have similar things happening in Philadelphia under their black mayor, Sherelle Parker. You have, I think, maybe London Breed out in California. This is happening across the board. So to me, Eric Adams is symptomatic of a greater problem, and it really demonstrates the problem with thinking we need representation in terms of ideology. We need black people in positions of power who are interested in serving black people, not just being there to be a face. Because what'll happen is, if an institution works in a particular way, if this is what the institution is set to do, for a black, even if that institution is set to be anti-black, for a black person to go into that institution and survive, they have to overcompensate. They have to aggressively show that they are willing to go the extra mile to control these black people, to ensure the white people that this will be fine. I've got them in order, which is why you see Cop City happening in Atlanta. There's not a coincidence why, because here they have this place that is this black mecca. They want to portray it like a black mecca, which means in order to get white investment, white dollar, keep a white establishment happy, these black politicians have to be willing to say, we extra have these black people in line. And so we're gonna have Cop City here. That's why they're trying to spend $1 billion on to build a jail, and $1 billion jail in Baltimore right now. So this is it's very connected to a much, much larger problem that we're not paying enough attention to, because our media is showing us things in terms of pictures. They're showing us pictures. They're showing us photo ops of black people looking successful, but it's these individual black people, these individual black politicians at the expense of the black many.
What does it look like if this wasn't the case? We know this is a police state. What does it look like if it's not a police state? What is the difference?
I what I love about those questions? It's funny because whenever black people talk about a world where we're not being killed, or think there's equality, or there are resources for us, everybody talks to us as though we have to talk and make believes. We have to be fanciful and come up with some how you gonna do that? How you gonna, as though they don't do that for everybody else right now. What do when white people and every people have the same issues that we have. Mental health is no more likely to impact, you know what I mean, for us to have mental health issues. We need education. We need money for education the same way they need money for education. We need money for healthcare the same way they need money. We need money for housing, and all of those things impact how we deal with problems, how we deal with each other, and the people that we become. So that's known for everybody else. For everybody else, they could recognize Joe Biden knew that his son, Hunter Biden, has all these issues, and he knew that the criminal system wasn't the answer for him. Like, he knew his drug issue, his criminal issues, or whatever have you, should have been responded to with care and with resources. So the same thing is true for us. We're not asking for anybody to reinvent the wheel or come up with some special fairy idea. It's the same way. The safest communities are not the most policed, they're the most resourced. Yes. The same way, you know that the answer to everybody else's problem is to give them money to deal with their problems. That's what we need.
Are you saying that it's not a police state for white people?
Exactly. I'm saying that it's not a police state for white people, but it will be and it can be, and it's important for them to recognize that. Like, sometimes I love, my favorite argument from racists is when they say police kill white people too, and I'm like, right, that's a good right. This is our problem. This is both our problems. Right. Join hands, help me. That's still a problem. Like, they think if they could divorce race from it, it's still not a problem. A police state is a problem. If you are hiring people and giving them the power to be able to kill you, to lord themselves over you, that is a problem. Like, whether I'm black, white, green, orange, I don't want to be killed by the people that I'm alleged or propaganda would have me believe are there to protect me, which again is also propaganda, because protect and serve is a slogan. It's literally, there's nowhere, institutionally nowhere is that factual. That's not in any police handbook. That's not true anywhere. That came about as a direct response to the Black Panther movement. Like, Black Panther is taking up a self-defense arm. We're going to protect the community. And then they came up with protect and serve. But the U.S. Supreme Court has this is decided in writing. Police have no constitutional duty to protect you. None. Like, the Supreme Court. That's not what they're there to do.
So what are they there to do?
Police us. Control us, police us. You ever, when you see police in your neighborhood, if you see children playing, and this is the actual example goes there in my neighborhood.
I think we going
the police are backer to the community. They're back. They're not looking to help you. They're not coming to come nicely ask you what you need. The police ever been walking around asking you what could make this community better? What do you need? Or are they there actively acting as though they are policing other interests? When they show up, when they're in our neighborhoods, they're not there because we asked them to be there. They're not there looking out for anything for us. They're not like serving us, protecting us. They are there to actively make sure that we feel their presence, that we feel like we have to act in accordance to however that they want us to. That's what it is. It's to ensure white people, we won't make it over to their neighborhoods.
No, I know I'm supposed to be doing something. I'm supposed to be working or something like that. No, because I have a fundamental issue with this state.
Yeah.
So I left. And he gets upset every time I bring it up, but I'm very dead serious. Like, I feel like New York City is turning into Gotham. I feel like every time I come out here, which I only come out here really for this, it's something else that I've seen that I've never seen before in the 31 years that I lived in Brooklyn. Yeah. Like, I understand that from the average New Yorker standpoint, that we still think the city is safe. But after leaving and coming back, this city gives me more anxiety than anything else. I don't think that New York is as safe as it was when I was growing up. I don't think it's as safe as it was.
When were you growing up?
Well, I was born in 89, so I'm 90s, early 2000s.
So it's definitely way safer than it was in the 90s.
And I believe you. Yeah. No, I do believe you, but I'm just saying that I personally don't feel that way anymore. And I do think that it is attributed to the propaganda that is placed about this city. And it attributes to every time I come here on the train, I see more cops on the train than I did ever growing up. So I'm like, so what the fuck? Like, what's going on here? Yeah. And they're never in a place of protection, as you said. They're not on the platforms like they used to be. When we were growing up, they used to ride the train and walk that shit back and forth. They're not on the train. Yeah. They're on the platform, or they're on by the turnstile. Yeah. That does not make me feel good. Yeah. Coming out of World Trade Center, because it's World Trade Center, they got the National Guard with their big old guns, and you have cops everywhere. Like, every time I come up here, I'm like, fuck this, I'm going back to Jersey. Because I have a cop station 2 blocks away from my house, and I don't even see cops outside.
But you and you know, I think it's funny, right? Is in the same breath that they are trying to convince you that New York City is so scary because of bail reform, right? Like, bail reform, that's the reason, right? That's when they started all this hysteria. People will say and feel safe, and that really is an important difference to me, that you say you feel safe in Jersey, but you don't feel safe in New York City. But what if I told you Jersey got rid of the cash bail entirely in 2014 under their Republican governor?
Get out of here.
But you ain't hear shit about it because they're not busy dog whistling. They only dog whistling about our city because black people.
Wow. I do have a question, Dodge. You mind?
Go ahead.
Say something. I get on a train now, and in every car, there's a mental health issue. Every single car is a mental health issue. You got this guy that's walking up to women, like acting like he's gonna punch them, or you got the guy that's walking down the block,
or
punching women, or whatever it may be. Somebody blew crack. In your mind, is crime on the same level as the mental health crisis in New York City right now?
I think the first thing we need to really like explore with New Yorkers is why whenever New Yorkers see a homeless person or a mental health person, they immediately, like whether or not they walked away safely, a crime was committed against them, they immediately see it as a crime issue. That I think is the first place we need to stop at. Is why when you see homeless people and mental health people, or you see these incidents, even if it's a mental health episode or whatever have you, your first thought is crime in the criminal system, rather than like why instead of thinking about that, we don't think, they cut funding from health, from, you know what I mean? They cut funding from medical care.
I can tell you why.
Yeah.
From this is my POV.
Yeah.
The reason why I think a criminal standpoint naturally is because this episode is now making me feel unsafe.
Yeah.
This episode is now threatening to me. Like, if you are losing your shit on a platform, the first thing I'm thinking is like, oh, I have to get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
Because what if you push me on a platform? What if you try to attack me? I'm not going to be nobody victim on the train. So with that being said, like, I have the humanity and the intellect to understand that, yeah, this person might be having a mental health episode, but I don't have the cognitive ability to understand that when I feel threatened. Because once I feel threatened, it's fuck out of here. I don't care what you going through.
Right. But you see how that's not solution oriented, right?
At all.
Right. Because here's the thing. Let's pretend in these scenarios when you see a mentally ill person or somebody homeless and they're having an incident or they're being disruptive or they're doing something that alarms you, but they have not, most of these incidences that people cite are not actually a crime is happening. You feel unsafe, right? So let's pretend that the police were somebody that can or should be dispatched because you feel unsafe. No one is, what is it that the police or the criminal system could rightly do, lawfully, or that would be constitutional or be fair to do to this person that has not actually committed a crime against you? You feel afraid. What could they do to them that would prevent them from being back here, making somebody else feel afraid again?
Right.
Nothing. In fact, it will make it worse. If a person is having a mental health crisis or they're homeless and they have a criminal case that's turning them in and out of Rikers, worse situations or whatever is happening, what is happening with their mental health and the situation that you're going to see again?
No, I agree. Which is why when Tahoe said earlier, when they said that they were making a mental health like a unit just to respond to things like that, I feel like that would be more helpful to put these people in a 48 or a 72 and figure out what the issue is instead of throwing.
But that's not what they
Rikers.
do. But that isn't what the system does. Like, even if I have a client, let's say I have a client, you're technically insanity if someone is not mentally competent to stand trial, right?
Yeah.
You know what the criminal system does when they find actually people with mental health issues that are clearly not competent to stand trial or to be criminalized, they will send them to Rikers and they will hype them up on medication, then do the mental health evaluation, and now they're stuck in Rikers on a case and they will not count, even though they knew this person was mentally incompetent. That's how it works. These holds, all that is an extension of the criminal system. What it really is, I think this is the mistake, right? Is we have to stop, especially as New Yorkers, thinking of homeless New Yorkers or people with mental health issues as a different species of people from us that we have to deal with. When these are everyday New Yorkers that are running into issues. Like when you, for example, you remember the case, I want to say it was last year when Jordan Neely was killed, the black kid that was killed in the subway.
Yes.
Jordan Neely, one of my fellow attorneys represented him. This is a kid whose mother had been murdered. And the criminal system didn't do shit about that, didn't help him with that. His mother had been murdered. And then he ends up homeless and is being churned. And he was homeless, like working as a subway performer for the longest, doing Michael Dax. After years of being homeless, trauma, loses it.
Yeah.
So what happened? What did the criminal system, what happens? These are not people that are just, they don't just start out crazy. They're not just waking up crazy. They're us.
Or make decisions to do something wrong. Something happens.
They have, things are happening. Think about living in this is one of the most expensive cities in the world.
On purpose.
Get out.
On purpose. Like, this is incredibly expensive. Like, the average New Yorker is just one bad day, one bad incident, one job away from homelessness themselves.
Yep.
Like, you let my job, and I think about it like this. In New York City, I'm a well-to-do. I consider myself a privileged person just by being able to go to law school, being able to do all these different things. When I graduated law school, first of all, I was dead broke in law school. I can think of how many times that I was in the train station hoping that somebody opened the emergency exit so I could walk through, right? And the only difference between whether I or the other person will be criminalized is respectability politics, how we'll be dealt with, right? So there are all kinds of, think about the amount of people that have been churned through the criminal system for that, and that's a real thing. But with the subways and what's happening in being poor in law school, right? Being broke in law school. I think about it like graduating. I graduated, I became a public defender. My salary was $54,000 to be, mind you, that's more than my tuition. Any child. My salary is $54,000 and that means my paychecks were $1,500. My rent is $1,300. What? It don't take nothing.
One day.
My cat got sick. I'm like, Jesus Christ. Like, it takes nothing in this city. So I think that's the problem, is like, we have to stop thinking about what should be done with homeless New Yorkers or mentally ill New Yorkers. We have to start thinking about it as us. Like, how would I want, if right now I had mental health issues, if I lost all my money, how do I think the city I should be dealt with? What should my government do for me? What should my community be obligated or feel responsible to do for me? That's how we should look at it.
I have more questions about this. I wanted to let Dodge take over the episode in a second. I want to know, do the politicians want crime to go away?
No.
Is this
why would they?
Is this one of those things where they make money off of?
Yes.
Do they want their mental health issues to? I want to know, are we putting our faith in the wrong system and what we can do to change it?
Yes.
But we'll do that on the next episode of So Shameless. Now we go back. We drop one every day.
Oh, y'all drop an episode every day?
We drop one. So we're
God.
about to go to break
How
right
y'all
now.
do that?
We're about to go to break right now, and we'll come right back.
Okay.
And start part 2.
Who edits?
Y'all already know.
Oh my God.
While I'm on Twitter doing the same shit that you see, I'm
That's
sitting
so
there
powerful.
editing. Patreon.com/So Shameless Podcast to hear. This is probably one of the best episodes we've done in a long time.
Oh,
your
beautiful.
full name?
Olayemi Olurin.
Olayemi Olurin. And I see it, but we call you Olay. And
Yeah.
it's funny because now that makes me say something different.
Right, because it's Olayemi, but Olay.
Right.
Yes.
But we will be back. By the way, you can check out, if you want today, if you're not going to Patreon, you can go to Olayemi's page on YouTube, where she does Olay and Friends, and she has so many great conversations. She does panels. They talk about everything from politics to even hip hop. They talk about a million different things on there.
And we're going to talk about some ratchet shit in like 2 days.
And we're going to talk about some ratchet shit
There go.
tomorrow.